Hello everyone, this is Nikke here, and I am making a video that I didn't expect I would make. As you can see from the title, this is a deck list for my top 3 placing that I did at the recent Bushy Road Summerfest Long Beach with my team. But I made the deck building guide a few days prior. Deck list from that was, I want to say, 2 weeks old or something. I'd been messing with the deck constantly, trying to find builds and cards that I liked and wanted to use, and didn't feel like they were useless to me. And this is what I ended up settling on. First thing you might notice is the deck title. Wait, this isn't Ruby. I have been playing Ruby at every regional that I've gone to since the first set released. And anytime I felt like I was going to play a different deck, I ended up backing out last minute because it wasn't as consistent for me as Ruby was. I still could have played Ruby in this tournament. I probably would have done just as well, potentially. But I felt like a change was needed, so I ended up going with this Nikke list. But you know what makes me mad? I should have been playing Ruby. Because then there would have been 3 Ruby lists in the top 4. And that would have been so funny. But nope, the one time I don't take Ruby, I guess other people were deciding Ruby was good. Okay, let's get into this list. So, first thing to notice is I am playing a lot of 1-ofs. And I am playing the Modernia Dorothy package that I did in my deck building guide. I really like this package. It is really good at closing out games where you are in the lead, and it has a decent chance, not the best chance, but a decent chance at coming back if you are behind. So, let's start off with the level 0s. Like my deck building guide, I am playing 4 of the Honed Sword Skills Scarlet. This card is your Ricky option, it's your main mill option. This deck does have a little bit of a struggle with milling. That is, I feel like, one of the weaknesses of it, but thanks to the Crown Brainstormer I'll get to in a moment, milling isn't as bad as it could have been. But this card does basically everything the deck wants it to do. It is a main phase Ricky effect, so you can level yourself as needed on play. This card mills up to 6 cards, adding any character you want, and then for some reason it top checks 2. Top check 2 in this deck is an incredibly valuable effect. Knowing the first 2 cards of my deck can completely decide what I am doing for mostly level 1 is what I'm using it for, because I don't really want to use Ricky's at level 3, but if the situation arose, I would. But knowing it for both my Modernia combo and my Dorothy combo is fantastic, and this card is amazing, and I'm not even touching on the power effect that makes it a solid beater against basically any level 1 or lower card. Because on play, if you have 6 cards in clock, this card is 4,500 power. You play a Climax, that's 5,500. Against anything that doesn't have continuous power at level 1 or lower, it pretty much wins. In that situation, of course. I mean, you can't always be at 6 damage. Next, I guess we'll just go to the right for this card, Scarlet Black Shadow. This is the main Climax Swapper. This is the main card that I have at level 0 for blue to level. And it has the ability to put itself on Send a Waiting Room into clock to check 2 for a level 1 or lower character. And that means I can just play her, use her, and then set her up in clock so I can level her, guaranteeing that I get my blue. And then the Climax Swap from deck effect is pretty solid for this deck because I am not at the fastest deck speed, so most of the time I will have cards left in deck, and that means most of the time I will have a Climax that I want left in deck. There was one round where it came up that I couldn't search my deck for a climax because I was out all of them, and that created a lot of issues for me to try closing out a game, and I potentially lost because I tried too hard to go for it. But good climax swapper. It's another Ricky type effect, so I just have to play over it, and I can level myself if needed. And it's potentially a +1, of course. Not as guaranteed as I would like, but it's still there. Next up, the Crown Brainstormer. Now, there's a story with this crown. My locals did not get this crown promo. Of course, every time there's a useful promo, somehow my locals misses it, and I don't know why. But I had to go over to another locals just to get 2 copies of it so that I can use it for this deck. This Brainstormer fixes every problem I had with this build before I had it. I was running the Red Hood Brainstormer before that, and while salvaging was nice, I had enough access to salvage that I didn't really need that effect on my Brainstormer. Checking 3 also means I have more access to mill in this deck if I ever hit a climax, which oftentimes if I have a couple climaxes in deck, I can kind of get to the point where I hit a climax with this. And then I check an additional 3, so I can get 7 cards out of the deck in a slightly bad situation. And of course, if I need to get a climax, this is the way I have to get the climax. And most of the time it does work. So this card being a check 3, like everything about it was helpful for my deck. And in addition, the beginning of climax phase, looking at top of your deck effect, that it was so useful anytime I didn't have access to any of my other top check effects. It could determine my attack order at level 1 and level 3. And I want to say having that knowledge won me a couple games this tournament. Next up, this Kododama Words of Power Maiden. I replaced the one of Red Hood Brainstormer that I had in this deck with this card. One thing I noticed in a lot of my playtesting was I would overhand quite a bit. And even if I didn't really care about how much hand I had as long as I had enough playable cards. And the more important thing to me was cycling my level 1 combo. So this was a guaranteed salvage of the level 1 combo. And in addition, for any standby decks or any time a person played a front row card in their back row just to use the effect, I could just lock it into their back row and they wouldn't be able to use it. There's also a couple times where I couldn't run over a beater that my opponent had. One of which times was a clean cut effect. I had no way to run over that card, but I did have the Maiden in my hand. And so I was able to just play Maiden, stop that card from moving so they couldn't answer my board with it on their turn, and then swung direct 1 or 2 times. And one of the times I used this, I was able to actually keep one of my zeros, which was a nice +1 to get off of that effect. Overall, a very good one to have. Similarly, this Pursuit of Firepower Neon. While the first effect didn't end up coming up at all in any of my games, I just literally never saw it as a trigger during my run at the tournament. But this deck does not have much access to search power. It's pretty much all salvage, and what little search power I have is mostly checking cards from deck and adding them, not searching my deck. Like the check 3 from the Brainstormer or the check up to 6 from the Ricky. So having this was very nice because early on, sometimes I wouldn't be able to get to my Brainstormers or my level 1 combos, and I was willing to take the -1 just to get to them because, of course, having a Brainstormer is really useful, and then my level 1 combo generates stock potentially, so even if I'm not getting a +1 on hand off of it, +1 stock was also really valuable to me. 2 Summer Rappies. I could have potentially played this as a more copies in the deck, but what I realized in testing was Half the time I didn't even care about the bounce back to hand effect because I would overhand with it. And the Crown Brainstormer was giving me a top check 1, so I still had the knowledge of the first card. But in situations where I wasn't going to overhand, or I would have overhanded so much that I could potentially use something like the Maiden or Neon or even the Privity Brainstormer that I'll get to filter for something else I wanted or generate an extra stock. This was nice to have, especially because check 2 on attack basically guarantees a top check or trigger that I need. Also, draw 1, ditch 1 is always nice to have, and if it didn't get me a climax off of it, it dug me 1 card deeper for Crown Brainstormer to hit a climax or something. And then I also was able to discard cards I didn't want out of my hand with it, of course. Very useful as a 2-of in this deck. I don't think I would play it as more than a 2-of, though. It was good some of the time, but it wasn't always necessary. Up next, the Privity Brainstormer, aka Missile Privity. So, the main reason this card was included in the deck, of course, is its on-play effect, where I can put a card from my hand into stock. That came up a number of times, and having 1 extra stock for 1 extra card in hand was extremely valuable. And having this as the other Brainstormer, I mean, if I didn't run this card, I would be wanting 3 Crown Brainstormers. But this was just my 3rd Brainstormer, and I did use it a couple times. Being able to mill the 1 extra card with it is useful at times. But, of course, the main thing is just the hand to stock on play, which I went for multiple times throughout the tournament, so very nice to have. Don't need it as more than a 1-of, but card was very useful for me. Would not drop this ever. Up next, Journey level 1 combo. If you don't know what it does, if you have 2 or more other characters, at all times this card is 6,000 power, which matters actually a decent amount. There was a few times that my opponent just couldn't kill one or more of the Majernias. I got to keep it on board for the next turn to use the combo again. Additionally, Climax combo on attack. If you have a Climax in the Climax area and you have 2 or more other characters, you can reveal the top card of your deck and then salvage a character equal to or lower than the level of the card that you revealed. And additionally, if you revealed a level 2 or higher card, you can put that card into stock. This is, of course, how you get enough stock for the Dorothy level 3 combo, and this is the best level 1 combo in the set, in my opinion. I think a lot of people's opinion. And oh yeah, this card has a soul trigger, which of course means it is very good for the Dorothy level 3 combo. Literally everything about this card is so good for this deck. Thanks to the top checks, my stocking of a level 2 or higher card hit more often than not. And I had multiple turns where I would get 2 extra stock or more when I was attacking with these. I even had a couple times where I was able to top check 3 level 3s with it, get anything I wanted each time, and got 3 free stock on attacks. Love this card. This is one of my favorite level 1 combos printed. Fantastic card. Next up, the Eleg Boom Install, level 1 Anti-Change Backup. This card I did not use once the entire tournament. But the reason I didn't use it is because in all but like one of my games, my opponent wasn't early playing at all. Like, I have not seen this few early plays in a tournament run ever. And in the game where my opponent was early playing level 3s, I was never in a spot where I felt comfortable using this counter, and so it just didn't see play this tournament. Would I take it out of this deck? I don't think so. I like having the security of knowing I have this if I need it, but it did not come up this tournament, fortunately or unfortunately. And of course, this is the same card here, the Snow White Innocent Days. I'm running 2 of it. The main purpose of this card is so that all of your door climaxes for your Modernity combo also get soul triggers. which means more soul triggers for Dorothy. And that means the door climax is not a whiff for her, meaning you can also just use it to salvage a card if needed. Of course, this card got use. I mean, anytime I had enough stock to play this card, I played it. Additionally, it is a 2k power to level 3's assist, which did come up a couple times. It got me an Alice early play to stay alive for a turn and be able to be used again once, which was nice. Additionally, it does have the ability to early play the Red Hood that I am running as a one of. And that did not come up this tournament, but the main reason that Red Hood's even in this list is because of standby. And I will get to it when I get to that Red Hood. Up next, for Privity level 2s, Privity Unkind Maid. So, of course, the main reason this card is in the deck is because of its first effect, where if you have a climax in your climax area, this gets shot. This is the best card to trigger for Dorothy combo. Because if you have triple Dorothy, that means instead of 3 shots, you have 4. And cancel burn 1 4 times is devastating. And this card won me the game a couple times. Now, I definitely didn't trigger it in every game I played for my Dorothy combos, but I did see it a couple times, and each time it was very impactful. Second ability did not come up except for once during this tournament, where on play, your deck has less than 6 or less cards. You may return all cards in your waiting room to your deck and shuffle your deck. It was never in a spot where I felt like I needed to use the free fresh effect. There's a couple times where I could have, but it just didn't happen except for once. The only time I would really want to use the effect anyways is if I felt like I was going to die if I took that extra refresh point, or if I was in a situation where I could only move through like 3 out of the 6 cards and there's no climaxes. Otherwise, I mean, you have to run this card as a 4 of. It's a level 2 or higher for your Modernia combo, and it is an extra shot trigger for Dorothy, and that is so important for this deck. Up next, Ludmilla Winter Owner. This card did not come up for me at all this tournament. I don't know if I needed it or not. The main card, of course, most people would be bouncing in this meta would be the Shauna 1/1, but shot triggers aren't affected by that. Granted, the main reason to use this in this deck would, though, be if I couldn't use the Dorothy level 3 combo and had to rely on one of the Modernia level 3s to get a burn off against Shauna. And I did play Shauna in one round, but I kind of just ran them over, and I never needed to use this card. Additionally, it has on play give 2 of your characters 1500 power, and that could have come up this tournament, but it didn't, so now this card's iffy. You can run it if you want, but I don't think you need to run it. Up next, Noise Classic Diva. So when you play this card, you can pay 1 stock. If you do, it gets 1k for the turn, and until the end of your opponent's turn, your opponent can't play events from their hand. Additionally, when this card attacks, if you have 4 more other characters, it gets 4k power, and your opponent can't side attack it until the end of their turn. This card was in the deck for the Nino matchup, the SDS matchup, and the Freerin matchup. I ran into one SDS player, and in that game, I was having a very unfortunate game and wasn't able to use this card. But it didn't end up actually mattering in that game anyways, because they didn't even use an event anyways, as far as I remember. I'm glad I had it in the deck, though, because if I had run into any of those decks and was not in a really bad position, this effect would have been great to have. So it didn't come up this tournament, but I'm glad this card was in the deck. Similarly, Mass didn't really come up this tournament either, But the main reason she's in the deck is if my opponent is a really compressed state and they have like 2 or less climaxes in a large waiting room, this card is extremely worth it. But I never ran into that position this tournament. I was in this position against the SDS player twice, and that's how I lost the game. But similarly to how they beat me with their Fumio effect, I would have been able to beat someone with this had the situation arose. Just never did. I'm fine with keeping this card in the deck. Up next, my 4 level 3 combo, Paradise Lost Dorothy. One thing I learned with this card is how aggressive I have to be playing the later stages of the game. Even if it's a slight risk, I should be trying to level my opponents to level 3 with this card because its kill range isn't as high as I would like it to be. That did come up in my round 5 match against Bunny Girl, where they were still 2-5 with decent compression, and I wasn't able to close out the game with this card. But on the plus side, in most games, this card, once it hit the board, my opponent was almost guaranteed dead. And that's how I, of course, would win most of my games, is playing 2 to 3 of this card, and in the case of 2, a Modernia level 3, and I would just win. So, Climax combo, pay 1. When Oberzone is placed in your Climax area, if this card is in your front row, you may pay the cost. If you do, this card gets 3,000 power to the end of the turn, and the following 2 abilities. All cards with Soul Trigger in all your zones get Shot Trigger, and when this card attacks, look at up to 2 cards from the top of your deck, and choose 1 card from among them and put it into your deck, or put it on top of your deck and put the rest in the waiting room. So while this card does not have a huge kill range, the best you can really hope for is 2-5, and that's a little bit of a stretch. You kind of need one of your attacks to stick for that range to work. But if your opponent is level 3 or higher and you are playing this combo, there's a good chance they lose this turn, because cancel burn 1, 2 to 3 times, or even 4 if you trigger the Privity level 2, is extremely scary for your opponent. Additionally, since she gets to look at the top 2 cards of your deck when you attack, you get to choose the Soul Trigger rather than potentially missing on a non-Soul Trigger. And it also allowed me to, if I knew I had the Privity 2-1 in the deck, dig a little hoping to hit the card, and that did come up. Additionally, the 3k power basically meant that she was out of backup range in most of my matchups, except for in the one whole life standby matchup that I ran into, but we'll get to that in a moment. Up next, New World Modernia. This card has the amazing ability, when she is played, to play another character your level or lower from your hand, and then it gets another 2,000 power. So, in the cases where I couldn't go for triple Dorothy, and I had 6 or, 8 or less stock, realistically. But if I had 6 stock or more, and I couldn't go for Dorothy level 3 for whatever reason, for triple of it, this guaranteed that I could get double Dorothy and an additional finisher off for 6 stock, which came up in, I think, about half of my games. I was only able to do double Dorothy. So this card pulled its weight immensely. Part of me even thinks I should have had it as a 3-of in this deck. It was that important. So, additionally to its on-play effect, when this card attacks, you can discard 2 cards to Icy Tail the bottom 4 cards of your opponent's deck, burning X. So mill the bottom 4 of your opponent's cards of your deck, burn X, equal to the number of climaxes they milled. This card won me 2 games, I think, by itself, with its on-play and on finisher effects, including my last round of the 3rd place match, where I was able to mill 2 climaxes with the effect, burn 2, and then my opponent was in range of my Dorothy combos killing. Additionally, When you top check with the Crown Brainstormer and you see a soul trigger on the top, that gives you free reign to just attack with this first, which was really nice and mattered a lot. Up next, my early play, Wonderland Alice. This is probably the best early play in the game. Maybe there's another better, but I do not know of it, or can't think of it at the moment. 4 or more early play condition is an easy condition. If all your characters are Nikke, which of course they are, she is 10,000 power with on reverse top deck. And then of course, on play, you can ditch a character to put the top card of your clock into your hand. Every part of this card came up at some point during this tournament, of course. I was able to push a ton of damage on one of my opponents and guarantee a level up for them while they did not have enough resources. Additionally, in one of my rounds, I had refreshed a pants trigger, and I was able to play this card to add it to hand and have it ready for my finisher combos the next turn. This card could have even been a 4 of, but I don't think I needed it enough for it to be a 4 of. The only reason it should have been a 4 of potentially was to have a higher chance at top checking for level 3s to salvage my Dorothy level 3. Finally, the Red Hood. Red Hood came up in one game, and in that one game, the only reason she came up was because I could not get to a Modernia level 3, so this was the next best option. She did not come up for the main use I had because I only played into one standby list, and the way I played the game, playing her just didn't matter. But I was glad I had her there in case I ran into a bunch of standby. Being able to run over any level 3 that my opponent had on the board and just get rid of it is a really useful effect. But I only played against one standby list this tournament, so she was not as useful as I wanted her to be, but I don't think I would take her out of the list at this point. One of is perfectly fine in the case that I ran into standby. Then as for what I played against this tournament and how my rounds went. So first round, I ended up playing against a Nikke Bunnies list. I cannot remember what their second climax was at all. Honestly, I don't even remember what happened during that match. I just remember had just won and moved on with my day. And I'm sorry if you're the player, I don't remember anything interesting happening that game. But I walked away from that match with a win. And I think my whole team did win that first round. In round 2, I played against a guy playing Guilty Gear, playing Nagarayuki and level 1 and Soul level 3. Things went fine on my end, but my opponent, no matter what I did, canceled 2 to 3 times every single turn, and I could not stop them from canceling, and I eventually just got outdamaged by them. So unfortunately that one was a loss, even though I felt like I was the better player and I should have won. But you can't do anything about some of those games in this game, unfortunately. Round 3, we ended up matching into a few of our friends, and I felt bad about it, but we ended up winning. Oh yeah, my team ended up winning round 2 also, so I was the only loss round 2. So round 3, we ran into our friends, we won, I won. One of my teammates didn't win, but it was fine. So 2-1 on that round 2. Against Hololive, standby. You don't want to let them have a turn of settling in at level 2. You just want them level 3 immediately, because the deck does not have that much kill power, and if you get them to level 3 and you're playing Dorothy, well, it's basically GG at that point. Now granted, I got them to level 3. Like, I made my friend miss level 2 basically entirely. Got him to level 3. And the next turn, he got me to level 3. I used my Dorothy combos. He lived. But I was 3-0, and I had a bunch of climaxes in deck, so I wasn't worried about on reverse burn 1s. And I was able to close out the game next turn because he was close to dead anyways. Round 4 was maybe my most unfortunate round of the day. I played against 7 Deadly Sins, and 2 times I ended up with at least 12 cards, if not more. The second time was definitely more, in waiting room, and only one of them being a climax because I just did not mill any or cancel with any. So the first time I still had 7 climaxes in deck. I think I had I had the 1 climax out, and I still had 7 in deck. But it didn't matter because I took a bunch of damage that turn because I got 7 clean cards shoved back into my deck. And then the second time it happened, they were level 3, and I had just triggered a pants trigger, so I had 1 in stock, 1 in hands, and then the 1 in waiting room. And then he just shoved all those cards back. It was like, I want to say 18 or so cards in waiting room, so like 17 back. And then he did that into double Hendrickson level 3, and that was just too much damage, and I lost. But it was not for lack of me trying to get to climaxes, because I brainstormed both of those turns. I was checking 2 cards on one of my attacks both of those turns, thanks to the Summer Rappy. It just did not work out for me. Round 5 was my third and final loss of the day. We played against the team that ended up placing second, and I played against Albuta. Oh yeah, I should also mention my loss in the round 4 ended up not mattering because my teammates both won that one. Yeah, so round 5, we all 3 lost. And this was the one game where I was put in a really awkward situation. He basically manufactured that situation, but it was also up to my deck running out of climaxes a little too early. I ended up being 2-5, while my opponent was also 2-5. I had enough stock to level myself to 3 if I wanted to, but I did not have any cards in my hand at that point that I could salvage the Scarlet Ricky. I did have the Scarlet Climax Swapper in my hand, but there was no climaxes in deck, so I had to find a way to mill through my deck to then climax swap with the Scarlet level 0, and I eventually got there, but I did not get there in a comfortable way to be able to triple Dorothy, so I had to do 1 Modernia into 2 Dorothy level 3s. And that game, my opponent had 7 climaxes waiting room, 1 in hand, I knew. Took me a second to figure out if he had added it, but yeah, he did. He had 2 cards left in deck. Unfortunately, he canceled my first attack off of refresh, and I really needed that attack to stick, because if it didn't stick, he was a little too low for me to guaranteed win the game. But no, he canceled that, canceled one of the cancel burn 1s I had. I attacked with the second attack with the Modernia level 1, hoping to snipe a climax with her effect. I did, if I remember correctly, and burned him 1 damage, but then that meant he was only 3-1 after his refresh point, and 1 cancel burn sticking and 1 burn 1. And then I didn't trigger a soul trigger on that attack, so he just canceled it for free. And then even if I got a cancel burn with my third attack with the second Dorothy, it didn't end up mattering. I tried. He canceled that too, took 1 cancel burn. I think he canceled the other, and then won the game the next turn. It was a close game. I mean, that was, I feel like, the only loss where I had some control over my destiny. I should have potentially just early played the Alice and healed down and tried to survive his next turn of my finishers. But we move on from that to round 6. Round 6, my team did end up losing, but I won my game against a Yotsuba player. Always glad to see Yotsuba being represented, but the deck definitely does have some problems, and it was evident in my first game against him and my second, but we'll get to that. In my first game against him, though, he was having to blow a lot of resources to move through his deck, and I noticed that, and when he was in a decent deck state, but not great, I pushed him from level 2 to level 3, and he only had like 4 or 5 stock to work with, and I was like 2-2 at the time. So he had basically 0 way to win the game because 2 Yotsuba finishers was not going to do it for him. And it didn't. He leveled me to level 3, and then I won the game the next turn. Round 7 was Shakugan no Shana. And like I mentioned in the earlier part of the video, Dorothy versus Shauna is heavily Dorothy favored. Shauna does not have a way to deny the shot trigger, and as long as I got triple Dorothy, I could guaranteed win the game against a Shauna player if the game was going well for me. And it overall was going pretty well for me. I think I had a lead the whole game, and I was low enough on damage that even with his finisher, shuffling cards back into my deck, I wasn't in any danger of dying to it, and then the next turn I triple Dorothy comboed, and there was nothing he could do about it. My team won 2-1 on that round, which thankfully meant we made top 8 as the 4th seed. In top 8, we matched up against our round 6 opponents that beat us. I guess they had worse tiebreakers than us, so they ended up being 5th seed rather than 4th, despite beating us. But in the rematch, even though one of us lost again, the other was able to manage to clutch out a win, and I could have lost this game. I had a very bad early start to the game, and was basically digging out of a hole the whole time. But what ended up winning my game here was my opponent was low level 2 when I hit level 3, so all I did was play 2 Dorothys to heal down to 3-0 again, and then I left 1 in the back row, and then just attacked, planning on 3 times depending on what happened. And after 2 attacks, my opponent was left at 2-4 and about ready to refresh. One thing I noticed in my first and second game of the day versus this guy is that he wasn't running the on-death Yotsuba Riki effect. He was just running the on-reverse one. So he had no way of forcing himself to level 3. So when I had the option to attack my 3rd time, I had 1 Climax left in my deck of 3 cards that I knew of. And he was 2-4, and if I attacked and triggered a Climax there, and he leveled to 3, I was going to lose, because he had a bunch of stock at the time. So I didn't attack there, left him at 2-4. I had 4 stock left, which meant with a Modernia level 3 and the Dorothy level 3 I had on the board and another in hand, I would have guaranteed doubled Dorothy into Modernia. And that situation played out exactly as I expected. After his turn, he refreshed to 2-5. And on that turn, he had used 2 of the Yotsuba 2-1s. And those have an on-climax play blind stock effect. And then he triggered 2 bars. So he refreshed his deck with 3 climaxes in deck, I think. He ended up blind stocking 3 climaxes over the course of the game. It might have been all in that one turn, I don't remember. But thanks to that, I was able to just kind of swing at him 3 times, and even if any of the damage got canceled, I would just push more damage on him. And it was kind of just over from there. So like I said, my team won 2-1 there. We moved on to top 4, where we had another rematch against the 2nd place team. My team unfortunately did lose again, but I got my revenge in that game. So, top 4 match was against Albuda again. And But this time I was able to avoid dying to his finisher, and I was able to win the game. It was a tough game, but I was able to, I think, decently convincingly win that game. Final round, our third place match, I played up against Ruby 8 Standby. And this made me sad because the second place team had a Ruby deck in it, and this team had Ruby. I wish I was playing Ruby. That would have been so much representation for this set that a lot of people think isn't as good as I think it is. But anyways, as the game played out, I didn't have much to do against his standbys. I could have played a Red Hood, but honestly, I didn't really care in that game. Since it's Ruby standby, his cards aren't getting super big, so I was able to contest his cards with Modernity level 1 combo, and at one point I played the Noise 2-1 just to be 10-5, and that was enough, really. Oh yeah, and along with the Alice early play, I played in there once. Regardless, I left him at 2-5. He was decently compressed, so I didn't have triple Dorothy, but I did have Modernia into double Dorothy, and Modernia hit 2 climaxes. So the Icy Tail hit 2, I burned him for 2, it stuck, and I triggered Soul Trigger on that, and then I triggered a Privity on my second Dorothy for a cancel burn 1 3 times, and that basically closed the game out. I think I had to attack with the third Dorothy, but oh right, I think I triggered 2 Privities against him. Yeah, I did. And I had to deal 2 damage to him per game, and he cancels, but the first 2 burns stuck, so it was GG. My team ended up winning that one 2-1 also. And that is how I got third place at a regional. This is the first time I have placed top 8 at a regional in my over 10 years of playing this game. I keep getting close, but was never able to get it until this time, and I am super happy. Thank you for watching, and if you like the video, give it a like, comment it if you have something to say, and I will hopefully see you in the next one. Bye.